Hello everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on August 17th, 2015, and this is of course the go-home show right before SummerSlam. And, in a way, I'm kind of glad the way they started off the show. Because, even though it was just nothing more than a promo for SummerSlam and somewhat for the night ahead, it was something different other than just Seth Rollins coming out and speaking for 20 minutes in some way, shape, or form. So having Triple H and Stephanie going out there and building the pay-per-view, not even in a way like, it's like, oh, we're trying to cut some kind of promo for the show or something like that. It wasn't really even about that. It was just them promoting like the spectacle of the event. And I was glad that, A, you got something, even though promo-wise, you got something a little bit different at the beginning of the show, and they got this out of the way right at the beginning of the show as well, instead of them doing it like midway through. So they brought up the Kevin Owens, Sheamus, after they got through that whole spiel, it brought up the Kevin Owens, Sheamus, and Randy Orton and Cesaro match, which the tag match, in the terms of story of building up these two matches, it was kind of just like a filler going into their matches at the pay-per-view itself. A relatively good tag team match, but nothing spectacular here, nothing too crazy going into the pay-per-view. It was just, like I said, a little bit more filler. They've pretty much kind of done their story elements that they needed to do for all sides here. They kind of weren't even really wrapping things up with this. So nothing spectacular there. Good match between them, fairly entertaining. One thing I could say about this Raw, it went by really quickly. It did not feel like it was taking 3 hours to get through the entire show this week. So that's in some way a good way of seeing things and saying of what you're seeing is that it's not taking that long to actually get through it. Or if it doesn't feel like it's taking that long, like the time just kind of flew by. I like the aspect that even if it's just like one fan or or like 2 or 3 or something like that, but then the people that are printing out the Cesaro section signs each week, unless it's, of course, it's WWE trying to do it as well. I don't know how that is, if it's just a group of fans doing it each week, or if it's WWE passing them out. I like the whole aspect of the Cesaro section signs and whomever's doing it, and we'll see how long this actually keeps up for. I personally like this. I like Cesaro in the ring. He's an okay promo, nothing spectacular, but I definitely like what I was like. I definitely like what I've been seeing with that over the past few weeks. I hope it continues on here in the here in the future with everything in that aspect. On the Divas side, again, they haven't really built much of a storyline between them outside of the whole dominance angle. None of them really going for the title yet, or anything on that aspect. You had 2 more matches this week with Tamina and Becky Lynch. Okay match, nothing spectacular again there. And then you had Sasha Banks and Nikki Bella. Pretty good match between the two of them. I like the way that they built it at the beginning of the show with Stephanie McMahon building it up as the NXT Women's Champion versus the Divas Champion. That was a nice little build towards it. It kind of made it feel a little bit more special. The two of them, their chemistry was a little bit off in the terms of being able to work together, but nothing really bad to say about this particular match. It was a pretty good match between the two of them. Again, this week, them basically continuing the build, the new divas coming in with from the NXT side, having both Becky Lynch go over Tamina, and having Sasha Banks go over on Nikki Bella as well. So they're continuing on that build. They're not really going anywhere story-wise with this, though. Like, it's still that continued battle for team dominance. It's not any of the particular individuals wanting to go after the title quite yet. So we'll see where they're going to go with this. They have that 3-team elimination tag match at the pay-per-view as well. So we'll see how that one pans out on the show, and we'll see where everything goes with that. You had Rusev versus Mark Henry again. Pretty much throwaway to set up the whole aspect of Lana coming in and bringing back out Dolph Ziggler. I'm kind of glad they played off of that whole They played the whole aspect that Lana said that he was going to come back after the pay-per-view, and then of course they do the area making it a ruse that, you know, they bring him back before the pay-per-view. So you actually are going to get something with Dolph Ziggler and Rusev, because they've been building this up mostly through Lana since he had been gone doing the movie, and they've been playing off the throat injury the entire time. So good to see that they're doing something with it and going into SummerSlam with Rusev and Dolph Ziggler in some way, shape, or form. So you're not really so it's not really still thrown on the aspects of Lana having to do everything in this case. They've done a pretty good job. They've done a pretty good job with this storyline. It's kind of been weird at some cases, and again, I still don't think Summer Rae really fits with Rusev in any way, shape, or form. So we'll see how the match turns out with Rusev and Dolph Ziggler. I would assume it would actually turn out to be a really good match on the pay-per-view itself, but we'll see where everything goes with that. You had a really quick 8-man tag match with the Primetime Players, Lucha Dragons, Los Matadores, and the New Day. Pretty much the aspect of that match was just how the Los Matadores and New Day could not get along, which allowed for Lucha Dragons and for Primetime Players to get the victory. Also kind of playing up the aspect of the Fatal 4-Way going on for Sunday as well, where one of the Lucha Dragons tagged themselves in. It's like, oh, and if something like that would happen at the pay-per-view, Primetime Players would lose their tag team titles. So they're playing up the Fatal 4-Way aspect. They played a little bit of the actual match, but nothing in the terms of an actual story throughout the entire, an actual story between any of them going into the actual match. You have what they had with the Primetime Players and the New Day. The promo from the New Day beforehand, I thought, was fairly good. Was a fairly good one again. These guys do play off as heels quite well, and it's very enjoyable to see where they're going. They do, like, they bring off this like heelish but somewhat of comical aspect to them, and it comes off really good with all three of the guys, with Kofi Kingston, Big E, and Xavier Woods. So they do a really good job with what they're working with there. The whole area with Seth Rollins and John Cena throughout the night. Sorry, had to clear my throat again. The promo backstage with Seth Rollins with Triple H and Stephanie McMahon setting up the whole contract signing. It's like, oh great, a contract signing. One of those areas again where, yeah, we know where this goes, And the good thing was, with the contract signing later that night, it was more promo based. Seth Rollins kind of riling up everybody and eventually, you know, having John Cena come out. John Cena's promo was great. Just on the aspect that, you know, he kind of, like, you had Seth Rollins talking throughout the entire thing, like how John Cena is actually the villain and Seth Rollins is the actual cure for everything. And even Cena kind of playing up babyface areas, but also playing up heel areas when he's talking towards Triple H in the terms of potentially beating Ric Flair's record and putting the pressure on Seth Rollins and everything on everything on that aspect. And I liked where that entire promo went. I liked how he played off the analogy. Played off of the analogy of how Ric Flair was Triple H's mentor, but Triple H was never Ric Flair. You know, we know the line. And actually, I'll just say it because of how the line was. It was like basically saying Seth Rollins was Triple H's bitch, but in there, in the terms of how, you know, when Triple H was with Ric Flair, it wasn't like that in the terms of, they were kind of like partners, but in this case it's pretty much Triple H gives him everything and Seth Rollins just like, okay, he just sucks up to him at all times. That's how they basically play that off, and I liked how the promo went, and I also liked just the aspect that it was just a promo. It wasn't another basic contract signing where you get promo, you flip table, beat up, and you get a beat 'em up time at that point. So again, really good segment there between the two of them. And then, oh, wait a minute, before you even go in there, because you also have the fun aspect, and probably the new fun thing, at least with the Bray Wyatt sections or segments of the show. Basically, everybody's stealing Brian Saxton's chair from commentary, and then Bray Wyatt, of course, sitting in it again. Like this last week, Bray Wyatt stole it from him. This week, Dean Ambrose stole it from him and gave it to him and said he was just going to sit there throughout the entire match with Roman Reigns and Luke Harper and do nothing. The match between Roman Reigns and Luke Harper was a really good match. Again, between the two of them, Luke Harper puts on good matches. Obviously, he doesn't get over as a character, but he puts on really good matches out there. Does it again with Roman Reigns this week, building up into the tag team match with Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt. The promo time, basically, or pretty much commentary time, was still on the aspect of how Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns consider themselves somewhat of brothers. Know that it's not actually blood related. It's kind of through what they do. It's in that aspect. So they were kind of getting off that, giving off that vibe again, and where they're going with that with Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose's story, and why they are going after the Wyatts. And they give the simplest explanation of it, which kind of works. It's like they just don't like him in any way. No real reasons behind it, and of course the way Dean Ambrose is, you don't really need reasons for him to not like somebody, so it just kind of works because they play him off as an insane person, so it kind of works in that aspect in terms of stories. And like I said again, you got another really good match with Roman Reigns and Luke Harper in there as well, so that segment came off pretty decent. And this brings me to the last part of the show, which was the Brock Lesnar homecoming. And, of course, subsequent Paul Heyman promo. And, again, Paul Heyman knocks it out of the ballpark. And it's not even an aspect that he's trying to... where he's doing the same thing over and over again. Now he's changed it up. It's like, one week he was doing, like, in different languages and prayer songs and everything like this, everything in that aspect. This week he was doing it via song and changing up... I forget what the song was he changed up, but it was, he did, well, let's just say, he's not a good singer, but it comes off great for the promo itself. And basically him singing the praises of Brock Lesnar, talking about what he had done in Minneapolis, playing up the babyface area of it. And also, I'm also liking how they're getting a lot of play off of this aspect of almost making Undertaker the heel, based on the fact that at Battleground he went with the low blow and trying to get the advantage over Brock Lesnar. And I like how much storyline play they're getting out of this, because they do it again this week. It makes it feel like, even though Undertaker's gaining the advantage, he's not really going in that strong into the actual pay-per-view match itself, because he has to gain what most people call the unfair advantage by using the low blow. So, and almost making Undertaker the heel in this aspect as well. It's interesting to see how they're playing off the Undertaker going into the SummerSlam match. They're playing him off as a completely different type of guy, and not something that he normally had been. You get the mind games, but then you also get like the cheap tactics to go along with it. So we'll see where they go with everything with the SummerSlam match between Brock Lesnar and Undertaker. I felt their segment was pretty well done again this week, and it needs to be, obviously, because of how little time they actually have on TV between the two of them. So, again, we'll see where everything goes into SummerSlam here. Honestly, this week's Raw was a pretty good one. At least match-wise. In some cases, they're still falling flat storyline-wise. But in other cases, fairly entertaining segments as well, and fairly entertaining matches to go along with it. I felt this week's Raw was a lot better than the previous weeks, and that's a good thing going into the actual pay-per-view, that they went in strong versus, oh, we've done all of our story elements 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. We've got a full filler Raw now. So you got a little bit of different stuff and different things in there. for them going into the SummerSlam pay-per-view. So I felt like they did a pretty good job this week with Monday Night Raw. And that is my review this week for Monday Night Raw. And I thank you guys for watching.